Welcome to Science in St. Louis, Lesson 1. In this lesson, students will consider the choices the engineers who built the Gateway Arch had to make based on the natural hazards, the weather, and the climate of our St. Louis region. To kick off Lesson 1 in Unit 25, Science in St. Louis, you're going to spend some time framing the unit. This is where you're going to tell the students that throughout this unit, they're going to look at the science behind St. Louis's most famous attractions. By the end of this unit, students are going to design a solution to improve an attraction in our city. In the Engage portion of Lesson 1, you're going to start by showing students these two images of the Gateway Arch. One, which is the actual Gateway Arch, and the second one is what the arch looks like when you're at the top. Then you're going to pose the scenario to students. You're at the top of the arch when a storm rolls in, but you are absolutely, completely safe. Once you tell that story to the students, you're going to probe them for questions. Do you have any questions about that? What did the engineers have to do to make sure that you were safe when you were at the top of the arch when a storm rolls in? For the Explore part of this lesson, each group of students will receive a set of cards that have weather and natural hazard data on them. Each group will go through the cards, looking at the questions on the back of the cards, and analyze what's going on in St. Louis region. They'll record general patterns on a handout. After students analyze the data on the weather and natural hazard cards, they'll get a set of arch cards. These arch cards will have certain features that the engineers included on the arch. They're going to look at the features, the descriptions on the back of the card, and discuss which weather or natural hazard these features were built to protect us from. During the Explain portion of this lesson, students will read a book, The Gateway Arch, watch an interview with Bob Moore, the Gateway Arch historian, and there is also an opportunity for them to visit the Arch Frequently Asked Questions page. The point of this Explain is for students to gather more information about the construction of the arch to help inform their discussion about the design choices the engineers made. In the Elaborate portion of this lesson, students will consider cities that have different climates than St. Louis. They'll look at buildings and climate data for each of these cities, and then they'll consider the question, what might architects and engineers need to consider when building in places that get hotter or colder than St. Louis? What happens if these places are coastal cities? Students will spend time discussing the considerations each engineer had to make when building these buildings. To assess student learning in this lesson, students will complete an evaluate where they'll read a scenario about the 2011 tornado in Joplin, Missouri. They'll look at data about the strength of tornadoes and how the tornado affected the hospital in Joplin, Missouri. They'll then use the scenario and data to analyze two different design solutions for a hospital in Missouri. They'll use the data to construct an argument and support their argument with evidence about which design solution would be best for a St. Louis area hospital. By the end of this lesson, students should have reviewed and analyzed data to describe weather and climate in St. Louis and different regions of the world, and they should have made a claim about existing design solutions and describe how the design solution reduces the impact of natural hazards.